Hey everybody, welcome back to Joyful Homestead. If you are a regular viewer of our channel, you probably know that recently we got some new baby chicks this spring. They were little fluff balls 2 weeks ago, and we wanted to report back with a new video and show you what we've done and the changes that have happened and what the next steps are. We're thinking now, we're kind of rolling now into weeks 3 through 8, and that is basically the feathering out stage. It's the time when their feathers really start to grow. They become more like the regular hens that you're used to seeing. They're going to be eventually assimilated into our regular flock. And what do we do to help them in that process? If you missed our first video, it's okay. You can watch this video and then come back later and watch that one regarding the first 14 days of their life. But we want to show you right now exactly what they look like. So some things have changed with our box setup, our brooder setup in the meantime. In the last 2 weeks, I actually had to go to a bigger tub. Our little gray tub got too small for them, and as they got more active, we needed a little bit more space. So I put all of their things into this bigger black tote. Also, you notice that there's this cover on here. I fashioned this cover in order to keep predators out, which is a good thing, but in a very real sense, at this stage of their life, because they're so active, they're starting to use their wings a lot more, and they're jumping and they're climbing. This keeps them in the brooder, and it's important to make sure that they don't get out and hurt themselves, get away from their food, their water, their warmth, and all of that. Let's go ahead and look at the what the birds look like right now. Look at how much they've changed. Before they were little fluff balls, and now you can start seeing their feathers coming out. Now this process takes a while. There's a little down on her, and then there's some feathers here. I don't know where the down goes. It may fall off and get eaten by them. I think I've seen sometimes where they have it in their beaks, which is kind of a neat thing. It might get absorbed, but ultimately they're going to be more and more of the hen feathers. Now, at this point, they don't have covering of feathers enough to keep them warm, so we keep the heat lamp on them. The rule of thumb is that for every week of their life, you lessen the heat by about 5 degrees. So at this point of time, we went from like 90 degrees, and now we're at the 80-degree range, and I pulled the heat lamp up a little bit away from them. Notice that they're starting to do some climbing, and they're flapping their wings a lot. They're up on this box. I've given them some chances to be able to climb in the brooder. They're more active. They're chasing each other. They're at this point trying to figure out the hierarchy or the pecking order of the group. And you can notice that their personalities are coming out quite a bit as well. Now, I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but the little runt here, this little bird rock, is my favorite. She was the smallest one, and she's doing great. She's our biggest climber. Her personality is coming out because I think she's also the boss, and she likes to be the highest. She'll actually be the one that will climb up on the very edge of the tub, and she seems to be very brave and courageous. Notice that with these birds at this point, after a couple of weeks, their comb actually starts to appear at the top of their beak. Their comb is that red thing that's on their head. Each breed has its own unique and distinctive type of comb. This one here has a little bit of a bald spot on her head, and that's the reason why we want to keep heat on them because they are still threadbare. There are places on their bodies that are gaps. This process of feathering out is not comfortable for them. You'll see at this stage when you have your birds that they do a lot of preening. They pull their wings out, and they start chewing under their feathers, under their wings, and on their wings and everything. It's as if you had a shaved part of your body and the hair started growing back and it was all itchy. That's the kind of feeling they're having right now. So you want to keep them as comfortable as you can. It's real important to let them start being chickens at this point. And so we'll see in the next step that you want to go from adding the cardboard to the bottom of the box to adding some things that they can scratch in. I've added a little bit of pine chips to this point, and you can notice that they'll do this scratch, scratch, look, scratch, scratch, look, which is what chickens kind of do when they're healthy and they know exactly what they're doing. So that was kind of fun to see that. Also, they're wanting to go up. They're wanting to climb. They're wanting to flap their wings. They're wanting to jump. That's all healthy chicken behavior. And so we want to give them a chance to be able to go up, even if it's toward the heat lamp, to get a little more warmth, or to roost. Remember, chickens roost up and they tend to lay down. They roost up and they lay their eggs low. That's typically how it works. So the higher the roost, the better for them. They feel more safe and comfortable that way. Let's go ahead now and we'll start working on preparing the brooder coop for the next step. Obviously, you should be doing this a couple of times a week anyway, changing out the bedding, the cardboard at the bottom. At this point, though, I'm using this process to actually change out their entire brooder concept. So I'm going to grab each of the chicks separately here. They are flitting around like crazy. Just going to catch them all and put them in this other tub for safekeeping at the moment. There are some things that are important when you're getting the new brooder concept, and that is things that are familiar to them they don't like me right now. Things that are familiar to them really are important for the new brooder. So I'm going to keep some things. This cardboard box is good for them to be able to jump and climb and even get up under the heat if they want to get out of the heat for a little bit. I'm going to keep that. And I'm going to keep these bricks. I didn't talk about this in the first video, but putting bricks or stones in the brooder is a really good way for radiant heat to be absorbed and then kind of radiated out when they are a little chillier. I find them sometimes actually nesting themselves and roosting on these. If you stack a couple up, you'll find that they'll really like that and they'll sit on them. So I'm going to keep those as well for the next concept. And of course their food and their water. We'll go over here. All right, so let's clean out this box. This is going to be their brooder for the next 6 weeks. And I put a couple of old feed bags in the bottom, empty feed bags, just to protect. If you have cardboard, you can do the same thing with cardboard. What I'm doing now is I'm putting pine chips in here. Pine chips are good because they have a bit of a fragrance that can keep any smells down, as well as being absorbent and a little bit antimicrobial, which is good for the birds. Of course, you'll find immediately as they're introduced to the pine chips that they're going to love these. You're immediately going to see that they'll start doing the scratch, scratch, look, which is a very good and healthy chicken habit. So I'm putting just a layering of this in here. You don't want them to be buried. This will be a perfect amount. I'm going to spread this around just to get them acclimated to that. You also see that they'll peck at the chips, and that's the reason why when they're just new in the first 2 weeks, we don't put chips down because we don't want them to think that's supposed to be their food. But at this point in time, they actually enjoy picking it up, placing them. Sometimes you'll find them putting them in piles, which is really interesting to see. But they enjoy the tactile with their beaks to be able to play around with those chips. That's a really good thing. Spread your pine chips around. Remember that at this stage of their life, the chicks are not going to necessarily want to eat this anymore, which is a good thing. They know what their food is. So I'm going to put the familiar objects for them into the brooder, and that would be this box here, which they're used to. Make sure that's stable. And the bricks, which they're used to. That'll be good radiant heat. One nice thing about setting up brooders and changing them out and everything is that if you're a young family with kids that are doing this as a project, kids love to be able to play setup. This is almost like a Legos, and so I'm a grown-up man playing Legos here, I guess, a little bit. But it's fun for the kids to be able to do this part of it and then put the chicks back in their new home. So definitely you want to encourage that engagement, the participation in that process. All right, we're gonna start putting the chicks in, see what they think of all of this. One at a time. Here's 2 of you. They're looking around. They're very curious by nature, and so they're gonna check out their new surroundings, and they'll probably do some scratch, scratch, look, scratch, scratch, look. They're gonna check out the high places. I'll put the water back in here. I always put the water up when I have wood chips so that the wood chips don't pollute that and make it all dirty. and we'll place the food right here. The heat lamp is in a place now where they can sit on this box if they want to. It'll be a little warmer up here. Get up underneath if they want to get a little cooler. One of the hardest things about raising baby chicks is temperature regulation. And especially as the different breeds are here together, they grow their feathers at different rates. And so some of them feel a lot more comfortable as the temperatures are colder, and some of them need that heat a little bit longer. So what we want to do is give them opportunities to move away from the heat lamp if they're feeling a little warmer, or hide under here if they're feeling warmer, or be up here and have some areas that are higher so they can be closer to the heat lamp. You can notice that birds are struggling and that they have a little bit of they're traumatized a bit when they start panting. When your chickens are panting, that means that they're hot. They also, when they are huddled together, it means they're cold. So you can read from their behavior some of the cues regarding that, and you can then regulate the temperature that way. Otherwise, you can use a thermometer, which is fine as well.
Dan drilled a hole on either end of the brooder. Then he put one of our gardening stakes through the holes. This makes for the perfect opportunity to train the chicks for roosting bars.
We put the lid on, and now this is going to be their home for about the next 6 weeks as they grow up and they feather out. Our next stage, we'll do a video on assimilating them into our regular flock. That includes introducing them to the other hens, as well as introducing them to new food, which is a really important concept when we're talking about raising baby chicks. Of course, that will be a while, so stay tuned and watch lots of content in the meantime on our channel. Have a great day.